Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
I didn't know you weren't ready. I thought you were ready.
Oh!
I thought you were ready.
So many lies. Oh, okay. Here we go again. All right. We're doing this. Hey, yes. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the MuseCast. I'm Shawna Boren. He's Dan Kent. And for those of you who find my laughter cringy, I'm so sorry. It's not a quiet little giggle. It never has been, and I fear it never will be. So I will, however, say please direct some of your animosity toward Dan Kent, because he is the culprit. He is the cause, the effect. He's all of it. So that's what I'm going to say about
let me interject. I think most people love your laugh. So you've got a great laugh. You do. There are people in this world who carry a burden of a terrible laugh, but you are not one of them. You have a great laugh. So,
oh, thank you, Dan. Thank you. A couple of things before we get into the business, because we're very business oriented here on this show. Nice haircut, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nice
was this
short.
one of the planned out ones? Because I know you schedule these things throughout the calendar year very specifically.
Yeah, no, I have one person that I go to, and actually it's kind of funny. Her name is Rachel, and I did a sermon in 2020, and I needed a new hairstylist because my hairstylist of 15 years had retired. And so I did a sermon on Ruth, which is one of my favorite sermons.
Same.
And yeah, I wish I could go back and do that again, because I love that. Hopefully someday I'll be able to do that one again. But so then I needed a haircut really bad, and I didn't have a person, and so I was like looking for a salon, and so I found this place in Woodbury, and I just like looked at the list of people, and I'll try this person, and so I tried Rachel, and I went in and we introduced each other, and she started cutting my hair, and she said, "Oh, I saw your sermon on Sunday. It was great." It was so. How cool is that?
That's awesome. So if you ever get a bad haircut from Rachel, it's because she did not appreciate your sermon.
I think there's something to that. I have to be really careful. In fact, from now on, I really should have Rachel check over my notes just to make sure that.
Yeah, I don't want to tick off Rachel, man, because that's
right.
Serious business. That is awesome. Yeah. I met two different people, Dan, on Sunday in the building who specifically mentioned the MuseCast that they watch. Yes. And so I'm very excited. I love meeting. First of all, we love meeting people that come through Woodland and tune into our services and stuff. But I know, and you said this too, like when folks are like, "Hey, I watch the MuseCast every week." And one person in particular told me his handle. So whenever he's chatting, I'll know who he is. So that is just really cool. Really, really cool. Awesome. I love it. One more thing. Dan Kent, after today, your friend Shawna Boren is on a little vacation.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. You know what?
Dan Kent, you knew this, so let's not be surprised, because now I'm getting nervous. Oh dear. Remember, we talked about this. I'm going to be
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not going to be on the MuseCast for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I always know when I look at my calendar what's going on.
Okay.
Sometimes when I'm not looking at my calendar, I don't know anymore. But
okay, I have a couple of rules for my absence. Okay. Number 1, no LeBron James. You may not. He is busy. He's gearing up for next season. He's doing some recruiting, down low recruiting. So you may not. Do not bug him. We need him focused. We need him to get healthy, get good, and be ready to go. Okay. So no LeBron James. Number 2, the show cannot be too good, though. I need you and our listening audience and watching audience to miss me and to want me to come back. So it can't be too good. And also no LeBron James. Okay.
All right. Deal. I can tell you for sure that every time I've done a solo MuseCast, people have desperately missed you. So I mean, it's literally just like Mr. Bean lost in a field. I mean,
it's not Mr. Bean. I loved that show. Oh, Mr. Bean. Did you see when he made a full feature film?
Yeah, he's got a couple.
So
Yeah.
good. Definitely a particular type of humor that you either love or hate, I feel like.
Yep.
I do not think of you and Mr. Bean in the same category. So, okay. So have fun, enjoy, but not too much fun. And don't make it too good because you need to miss me and want me to come back. Okay.
Deal.
We're good? We set?
Absolutely. Yes, we are set.
Awesome.
And this is a well-deserved vacation, by the way. You work so hard.
You.
And literally like almost every single activity that we do, we're like, well, we need someone to host this and we need someone to bring some light and some fun and some wisdom and all of that. And always Shawna's at the top of the list. So you get pulled into just about everything at this church. And so I'm glad you're getting a good vacation.
Yeah, I will miss you guys, but I am looking forward to it. I'm giddy excited. I've never taken 2 weeks off in a row before.
That's awesome.
I mean, unless I was having a baby or something.
Yeah.
Medical.
But that's not really taking time off. That's like a different.
That's a whole different thing. All right. Now that we've been properly warmed up and we've greeted everyone and they're used to hearing our voices, let's dive into Sunday's sermon, which was brought to us ever so eloquently by the Mr. Cedrick Baker. And he talked about the significance of the church.
Yes, the significance of the church. Yes.
I am anxiously awaiting your summary, but what? You've got something before that.
I got one thing I have to bring to this too, just because we are known almost as much for our theological discussion and spiritual growth discussion. We're also known for our cunning, acute basketball analysis.
I was trying to hope you weren't paying attention. Man.
Yeah. Well, I know. So we were both cheering for Miami. I think we both wanted Miami to win.
We were.
The Nuggets won, and I just want to say a couple consolation things about that. Since the Nuggets won, I think, and this is my opinion, I think the Nuggets are the number one team in basketball. They pretty clearly showed that. They were really unstoppable. Yeah. I would say the second best team was probably, humbly, the Lakers.
Thank you.
That means the third best team was the Timberwolves.
Oh.
And I would say number 4 was the Miami Heat. So that's
there you go.
My opinion. And you can send all hate mail to me.
I like that analysis. Yeah. I'm thinking of someone in particular who tunes in to the MuseCast and who's also part of gathering groups who I'm sure is just waiting to greet me about the Denver Nuggets. I will say very cool. They have never won a championship before. So a 46-year drought. And the last team, a bit of trivia for you. The last team who had such a drought, it was 45 years before they won a championship. Do you know who it was?
Minnesota has multiple teams who have not won team. So I can't.
So we're talking basketball and it's not the Timberwolves because they don't want it.
Well, we've never won.
I know. So I'm saying, so they're still going.
The other team.
So the other team 45 years but until they won their first championship.
The Milwaukee Bucks.
Nope. It was my main man, LeBron James, yet again, bringing a championship to Cleveland for the first time. That was amazing. Yeah. So Denver went 1 year longer, 46 years, and then they finally got it done. Nice. So there you go. Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, hey, let's talk about Cedrick's awesome sermon.
Summary.
That's right. That's right. I'll just kick off this by saying that this is a sermon that I thought about, like I've been thinking about since he gave it. Like it just keeps percolating in my mind. And that's always a good indicator that there's some really important substance there. So if people have not watched this, don't rely on my summary to tell you what the sermon is about, because there's a lot more to it than my little summary here. But that being said, for our own discussion here, let me just offer this. First of all, Cedrick started off by a really cool discussion about how he grew up as a kid in the church. And I loved that, just showing how church was part of the kind of context that molded Cedrick into who Cedrick is. And I love hearing those stories, because we hear so much about what's wrong with the church and all of the icky stuff about church. And it really is refreshing to hear, man, look at what I learned and look at who I became because of the church. And it's just a great way to start this sermon. And so that was awesome. But he also acknowledges that that's not everybody's experience. Everybody does not experience church in that way. And people have been hurt by the church and people have been disappointed in the church and all of that. But he really narrowed in on one particular kind of disappointment that people had with the church. And that is that they felt like church is irrelevant. And that's one of the reasons why people are leaving the church, is because it's just not relevant. And so Cedrick offers a few different kind of he looks at what does that mean? What does that look like? Why is the church irrelevant? And what he says is the first thing is that we live in a time of do-it-yourself spirituality, where people are kind of seeking God and developing their own kind of worldview and theology on their own in this kind of profound sense of individualism. And they no longer form these beliefs in community. And so the church as a default isn't as relevant to the method in which we have tended to kind of form our beliefs nowadays. Number two, the church has, in recent history, for the most part, and there are exceptions to this, but for the most part, the church has not really addressed really important social issues. And so things like homelessness, poverty, racism, things like that. And that, those are the things that impact people the most. And those are the hardest parts of living in this world, are those things. And if the church isn't even going to address the hardest things that we deal with, well, it is, in essence, then irrelevant. And then finally, he says that church is irrelevant because there's no real sense of community there. And so what he does is he wants to respond to these kind of sources of irrelevance by saying this. He says that we have to, first of all, remember that the church, when we say the church has failed, or the church, there's no sense of community at the church, he notes that, and this is very important, we have to be careful not to think of church as this abstract institution, but just remember that when we say the church, we're kind of talking about ourselves. So when we say the church is failing, we are simultaneously saying that we're failing, and so, because the church is really just you and me, and together we form the church. And definitely there are leaders at the church, and those leaders play a role, but the church is way more than the leadership. The leaders really play a small role. The primary heartbeat of the church are the people who go and participate, who are not in leadership. And it's weird too, because as I have, worked at Woodland Hills and have kind of taken a leadership role, I see that more than ever, that, man, leaders, I don't know why they call us leaders. We don't really have that much say so. We really are just kind of serving everybody else, and they're what makes Woodland Hills what Woodland Hills is. Now, it doesn't seem that way because we all listen to Greg and so forth, and there's this perception that, and it's a skewed perception, that's what the church is what Greg is bringing. But I think Cedrick is absolutely right. That's an illusion. The reality is the strength of the church, the power of the church, has little to do with what Greg says on Sunday. And then the second thing he says is that we have to remember, since you and I are the church and God is calling us to be part of this body of Christ, we have to recognize that, man, we each bring something very unique and important that God wants to use, both for the church and also for the world that the church serves. And I think that's really important. He quotes Mark 16:15, where Jesus says to go out into the world preaching the gospel to all creation. And how he interprets this, and I think he's right about this, is that we each bring something unique, and by using our unique selves in this ministry to creation, it's this gospel story that makes us relevant and makes our message relevant to the world. And then finally, he just leaves us with 2 possible steps to start on this path of kind of really tapping into this unique self that we have, and using that for God's creation in this important way. And so he just says, number 1, just think about like what's on your heart, like what are you good at, what's unique about you, what's something unique that you bring to the world that's very specific to you, and what do you care about maybe. And just think about those things that that are uniquely you. And then number 2, start talking with other believers, start talking with others about these things, and just put your feelers out there to see if there are any opportunities to tap into your special, what you have that's special, and see if there's any opportunities to bring that to creation in a way that might be helpful, relieving, transformational, whatever. And so that was the gist of Cedrick's sermon. And like I said, I've been thinking about this since Sunday. And so, yeah, I think that there's something very important here. What did you think of Cedrick's sermon?
Good summary, Dan. Thanks so much. You do those really well, sir. Just FYI. I want to start off by saying thank you to Cedrick, because it was a really thought-provoking sermon, and he hit on a lot of things that are like my easy go-to cheering points. And so I was all about it. Honestly, I loved the reminder that the church isn't, when we say the church and when we're putting a critical lens to the church, we're not talking about the bones and the building and, the infrastructure. We're talking about the people, because we are the church. And so it's real easy to sit back and go, the church, but it's like, the church, right? It's us. We are they. We are the church. I loved that reminder. And I am a firm believer that every person has a gift, has something of substance to offer others in the world. And it may not be significant in your eyes or in, but it is important. And I believe that God works through his people. And I know that the name of God has gotten a bad rap for many, many years. And I feel like this personal mandate, like as God's people, it is up to us to change that narrative. It is up to us to go out and be, like Cedrick said, the hands and the feet of Jesus, the light of Jesus. And I believe every single person, and it's not about intelligence. It's not about, talent that the world sees. I feel like you are uniquely gifted and created to do something for others. And it could be something as simple as you're the one who smiles at people and says hello, because you never know the impact that will have. I think impact is great, but we assume that in order for our impact to be great, we have to be great. And that's just not the case. So I can easily get on a soapbox about that. You all have something that we all need, that the world needs. And I love that he made that point. And I agree that there are many people who see the church as irrelevant. And I think if we care about being God's people, about being his community, like I know that we do at Woodland Hills, then we need to care that people see us that way and try to change that narrative again, like I said. I love the church. You and I have both shared parts of our story, and part of my story that I've shared about is that I was adopted at 13, but I met my parents in the church. Like, it wouldn't have happened. My life wouldn't have happened the way that it did had it not been for a local community of believers who looked after me and cared for me in a very intense time in my life. So I love the church. And because I love the church, because I love us, I say, we got to be better. And we can be better. We are better. And so I think part of that is just that calling that out in one another, saying, hey, you are amazing and we need what you have. And you. And it's like Oprah, everybody gets a gift. Everybody has something to offer. So yeah. And then I would say his point about folks not feeling like they have community within the church. I feel that, especially at a place like Woodland, when we're larger. Yeah. And I would also say sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone to kind of try to connect and find that community. And so I think there were some really great reasons as to why he offered that people feel like the church is irrelevant or insignificant. And I think he just offered some really great responses to those reasons. And I'll end my response to your question by saying, I'm so thankful. That was the one of the big things I walked away with after hearing Cedrick's sermon is I am so thankful for our community at Woodland Hills because we're hearing this kind of stuff, right? And we are challenging one another and we are desiring to grow together, and we don't put any one of us up on a pedestal. Like, we truly are for one another. And I love that. It would be very easy if I weren't a part of Woodland. I could see myself as being one of those folks that was like, the church, no, thank you. Yeah. Love Jesus. We'll lean into him left, right, and center. But the church, I don't think so. We are really blessed to have a community that we trust and can flourish in and be challenged by. And, I'm just so thankful.
Yeah. No, I agree. You had mentioned about the importance of the local community, the localness of the church. And that kind of taps into something else that he talked about, one of the distinctions that he made that I think is just so central. And that is that when we think in terms of like right and wrong and political type of hot topics, we can end up sabotaging the real power of the church. And that is that I get it. I understand why, because it's like anytime you have something that hurts people or that's oppressing people, you want to find the highest, most powerful source of that and attack it. And a lot of times that ends up being politics. And so there's definitely a role for that in the church. I think that's unquestionable. The only problem is that that's not the church's unique power. The church's unique power is in the life experiences of the people who are actually at your church. And I think that's the language he used, is like this political kind of power versus the life experiences of those around you. And in a sense, the real power of a congregation is, how are we treating the people in our congregation and our neighbors, our immediate neighbors, because that's what's going to transform people. We might be able to, lobby or protest or something that might, make a dent in some, political agenda. And I think that's important, because the leaders of the country need to hear when we're not happy with what they're doing to the people in our neighborhoods and stuff like that. But I just think that we can't do that stuff at the expense of dealing with the immediate life experiences of those around us. And I think that is a really important and helpful reminder to keep in front of us at all times.
I'm so glad you brought that forward, Dan, because I was thinking about that as well. It's the reason why so many within our own communities, wherever you are, feel like what we have to offer is insignificant, is because we're not tapping into their pain. And I'm not trying to say that we have to go around polling people to find out, okay, what's your pain? What's your trauma? That's not what I'm saying. But if we truly are like living this life out together, we need to be concerned about the things that concern our brothers and sisters. I think Cedrick beautifully stated, in a moment of vulnerability and honesty, just to say, hey, as a Black man, if my church were ignoring some of the issues that I face, I wouldn't be okay with that. Like, if we were to stick our head in the sand and say, not our issue, that's political. No, I think we need to, I so agree with you. Like, yes, there are things that are political, and to whatever degree you feel led to get involved with that, bless you. Yeah. However, there are actual real things. There are families who are struggling and suffering for a variety of reasons. There are widows. There are those who are scrambling to get enough work. There are those who have healthy, there are those real things in our midst, and we need to be paying attention and trying to lean in with our whatever. It's not like in a power over, we're better than you way, but just in a how can we come under and support?
That's right.
Kind of way.
And, not only that, but even when Cedrick had that moment where he was talking about that, I really appreciated that too. And because it is sort of a way of holding the church accountable. Like, look, if you're not gonna speak to my life experience, then I'm not really part of your body. And I think I think there's something very right about that. But even like more than that is when I take that life experience of somebody who is part of my community, And then I go and I do something political. Maybe I join a protest for some type of racial issue that's going on. Now I'm not just doing it for the racial issue, but I'm doing it because my brother Cedrick is affected by this. And that totally changes the whole dynamic of everything that I'm doing in whatever it is that I'm doing. When I have somebody that I'm related to in this way, it just absolutely kind of transforms why I do what I do, and probably the way I do what I do as well. And so I think it's just really important.
Yeah, amen to that, Dan. That proximity keeps coming up. When we have proximity with other people, it's like we can see things differently, and we can care about things differently. I know, we know I have 4 teenagers, and so therefore
that amazes me every time I hear that. That's just
I know. And they're fantastic, and I love it. I feel like it is just one of the great joys of my life. But that also means I have relationships with their friends and so I'm always looking for those opportunities to present something different than what they assume or what they know, especially when it comes to being a believer, a Christ follower. Like, people have ideas and opinions of what that's going to mean. Yeah. And I love, not like as a gotcha moment, but I'm keenly aware that I could be presenting a different perspective. I could be presenting to them a loving God in a way that they've not seen. And so I take that seriously, and it's been really, it's cool. So I think that circles back to, like, it's not, and Cedrick said this too, it's one person at a time. It doesn't have to be these grand things for us to have impact. Sometimes it's just who's in your circle, who's coming through your door, right? Like, who's walking past you. It could be as simple as that.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, first of all, you're obviously the cool mom in the circle of friends, so that helps. But secondly, thinking back, like the church that I was saved in, I don't remember a single thing Pastor John Peterson ever said from the pulpit. Not a single thing. I remember one time he dressed as Peter or something, but I don't remember what the message was about or anything like that. But I remember multiple conversations with the volunteers who worked in the youth group or who worked on Sunday, like things where they actually spoke to me about something that I was wrestling with. I remember multiple conversations at that level still today. And this is 30 years later. And so that just goes to show that, the leadership has a role for sure, but the real power comes in those life experiences, those moment to moment, those individual one-on-one kind of encounters. And we all play a role in that. And so, I think you're absolutely right.
That's so cool. As you're saying that, Dan, I'm reminded of a story I feel like I've heard you share about. Wasn't there, like, you worked in a comic book store or something, and there was a connection there to a guy in the church that just really took an interest and spent time with you and helped
Dave.
Along that path. Yeah, Dave
Johnson.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep. Yeah, he was a comic book collector. It was actually called Comic Collector was the name of his store, and I organized comics for 50 cents an hour, and he invited me to the youth group, and he was one of the volunteers there, and it really was like a pivotal kind of moment in my life. But even after I was there, Steve Crane and Greg Gray and multiple others played really important roles in kind of where I am today. So
that's awesome. It sounds like you've had some pretty positive church experiences, would you say?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And which is not to say that the church was perfect or anything like that. It's just that, but it goes back to what Cedrick is saying. It's like, the church is you and me. And the fact is that you and I are not perfect. You and I are screw ups, and we're all screw ups, and we're trying to build this community, and that it's not going to look perfect, but at the same time, it's the ultimate source of transformation. And it's our ultimate hope is this community that God is working through to bring his truth to the world. And so you have to bring both of those things in, where this is, I think, the ultimate source of transformation and truth and light in a world of darkness, in a world of untruth, in a world of pain and suffering and meaninglessness and all of that. We have this source of light and truth, but this source is also made up of humans who are imperfect and sinful and misguided, and our eyes are still adjusting to the light, and we're not all there yet. And so I think that you have to remember both of those. And so in other words, you have to stick with it. You can, if the church is doing something dumb, well, the church does that sometimes. And to say that, well, I'm an ex-evangelical or whatever, and just leave the whole thing, well, I don't know if that's the wisest move. I think maybe you might have to try a different community, especially if you've been hurt personally. Definitely try a different community. But to leave faith and to leave God, I don't know. For me, I think this is our humanity's only ultimate hope. And so I would encourage people to just keep at it.
That was a good admonishment, Dan. It was sounding kind of nuggety, so I do not want you to think you're off the hook, because I do have one final question that actually taps into what you were just saying. And then we'll get to nugget time. Okay. So lock that in. I'm so, like I said, so thankful for our church community and what we're about, and knowing that we're not perfect, but we are like rolling along together. However, I'm keenly aware that there are those who have not had as good of experiences within a particular community that is the church. And so for those, for a variety of reasons, I'm hearing an encouragement from you to not give up, to continue to try to find some sort of connection, because we can't do this alone. So I'm hearing that in what you just said. I'm just wanting to give you another moment to encourage those. What can those folks out there do that just feel like, I'm done. It's been too painful, or I'm just too annoyed with it, or they just don't care about the right things, or whatever all of the reasons are. Cedrick laid out plenty of them on Sunday. How would you encourage those folks to keep going, like you were saying? Keep going.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough because I think that the reasons why people are, especially if people are hurt by the church, you know, some of them are pretty serious kind of sins that cause the pain. And so I wouldn't want to recklessly make recommendations to people in those situations without knowing their specific situations. But and really the you called it the admonishment. That's heavy for me. Because like, you know, the ex-evangelicals, you know, the self-identified ex-evangelicals, I mean, you know, I've never really like identified myself as evangelical to begin with. And so, you know, I'm a Christ follower, and I really love this community at Woodland Hills. And it's just what worries me isn't necessarily the fact that people are exploring their faith and rethinking their beliefs. I think that's a great thing to do. But there is this gloating about having this identity of ex-evangelical. And there's this sort of sticking up our spiritual middle finger at the community that we're leaving that I think indicates something that can be very toxic in and of itself. And especially when the thing that you're leaving is a community, not an institution. And to gloat about abandoning a group of people, I think can reveal something that might not be healthy. And but people who are hurt, that's a totally different thing. And people, or if people have just changed their beliefs, you know, that's okay. I mean, we change our beliefs. We get convinced of different things, and that happens. And the other thing I would say is that if people are disappointed in the church, and they're in a place like they don't know what they're going to do about it, I would just, you know, I mean, I keep coming back to this, and it's probably the foundation of my entire spiritual kind of discipleship, is that I just keep coming back to the fact that the Bible says over and over and over again, over 100 times in the Old Testament, to seek the Lord. And it wouldn't say seek the Lord so many times if faith was easy. and so if you're in this time where you feel like the church has let you down, or if you're hurting, just remember that the Bible knows that. The Bible knows that you're going to experience this, and the prescription is to keep seeking the Lord. That might mean, you know, maybe seek out a different community. Maybe it might mean bring your concerns to the community that you're in. That's the ultimate. That's the best thing you can do, is to just say, look, I don't understand why we're, advocating for this, or I don't understand why we're doing this, and give your leadership, give your community an opportunity to talk that with you, because either the reason why they're doing something you might not understand, or you're bringing a criticism that they really need to hear. And maybe there's nobody in the leadership team, or maybe there's nobody in the community who has thought of your criticism, or who is aware or sensitive to something that you're sensitive to. And the fact that a person in that situation might leave the community, man, you're just missing this great opportunity to make that community better by bringing whatever it is that you have to bring. Like Cedrick said, we each have these unique things that we bring to the community, and to run away from the community is to miss out on that opportunity to serve. And so I guess that's what I would say.
That was good, Dan. Thank you for the care by which you answered that question. That was evident. So I appreciate that. I think it is time, good sir, to move into nugget time. And I'm going to go first because you just gave a very, like I said, caring answer to my question. And my nugget is really, it's just kind of further diving into what we've been talking about here. The reality is we are human, and humans are going to human, which means we're going to muck things up, and we're going to get things wrong. And my hope and my prayer is that we would have grace for one another, to the extent that it's not harmful or dangerous, right? And so, like Dan said, there are things where there are some pretty horrific things, and we know that. We're not dumb. We get it. There are some horrific things that have been called out, that should have been called out, that have been hidden for too long, and those things are being exposed, and praise God for that. Don't stay in those situations. That's not the message here. The message is recognizing when you do find yourself amongst brothers and sisters who are striving to follow Jesus and show who Jesus is to the world, like let's do that together. Let's be on this journey together. And my prayer is that you will be able to find that community. If it's not this community, if you're too far away and you need some people around you, which I think everyone does, like my prayer is that you would find that community to journey with in this process, because we are not meant to go it alone. We definitely have needs that are going to be met through one another. And you also have much to give to others. It doesn't matter to me your station in life, your intelligence level, your social economic level, none of that matters. You have something, you have gold within you that is needed by someone else. And so I encourage you to ask God to begin to reveal that to you, and begin to reveal that to others, because it could be the exact missing thing that folks need. So that's that. Good.
That's good. I think my nugget will probably kind of tap into the similar thing that you're talking about. And I love the story of David and Goliath, because, so often when people think of the story of David and Goliath, they think of the fact that, he's just this small guy and he defeats this big giant. And it's sort of like the quintessential underdog story. But in reality, when you look at David's history, it's Goliath who was the underdog the whole time, because Goliath came into this battle with like all of this really heavy armor. In fact, he needed somebody there to hold his shield because he had too much stuff on him, and he had the spear and sword. And David comes in with no armor and a sling, and it's like he doesn't even need to get close to Goliath to take him down. And when you look at David's history, and David says this to Saul, and Saul's like, "Why should I let you fight the giant?" And David says, "Well, listen, I've been tending my father's sheep since I was a little boy, and sometimes an animal like a bear or a lion would come and steal one of the sheep, and I would have to run and retrieve this sheep from the mouth of the bear or the lion." Can you imagine that?
Absolutely not.
What a crazy life. I mean, what a crazy life. And he even gives
way.
like his preferred things. Sometimes I would grab the back of the bear and I would pull his head back. And so he's got like all these tactics and all of this real life experience that he got because he was this shepherd boy. Nobody else would experience that unless you were a shepherd boy like that and you had courage like that. And so he's bringing all of that experience in to face this big dolt with heavy armor. And he's like, I would rather face this guy than a lion or a bear. And so the fact is that David beat Goliath because of his unique life experience that he brought to the situation. And now that's a very dramatic example, but there are lots of other examples too of people who, there's a guy, one of the like top prosecuting attorneys in California. He doesn't read very well because he's dyslexic. And yet he's become like one of the top prosecuting attorneys because he doesn't read well, he ends up listening really, really well. Like he doesn't miss anything. And so it's in that weakness that he has compensated in this other way. And because of the strength of the weakness, the compensation is equally strong. And that compensation is very valuable to the world and can do a lot of good in the world. And so that's what I would say is that think of your life experience, think of what's unique about your life experience and what skills did you learn in those life experiences that probably other people haven't. And or even when you think of your weaknesses, how have you compensated for your weaknesses? Because a lot of times the way that you compensate for your weaknesses ends up being stronger than people who haven't had to compensate for those weaknesses. And those a lot of times are the places where you can find something very, very valuable to bring to the community. So that is my nugget.
Awesome. And that it's all tied up in a bow. Today's show.
Yay.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Hey, thanks for coming and chatting with Dan and I when you're around in town on site and letting us know that you watch the show. That's just so great. Such a gift.
Super fun.
Dan's going to take real good care of you guys the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
So he's going to take real good
Are you not
care.
going to be here for the next 2 weeks?
Oh my Lord. Here we go again. If you text me next week, I might come on and chastise you just for the sake of it. All right, you guys, thanks so much. Continue to tune in and circle back because, well, for 2 weeks, Dan will be here and then we'll be here continuing the conversation. Have a great week, you guys.